Hello, everybody. It is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode of The Old, the New, and the Awesome, where, as always, we shoot the shit and we do not shoot the messenger. I'm very excited because it's been a bit since we got together and just talked about everything that was on our minds and everything that's going on out there. So today I've got Cami and Gina, two of my favorite co-hosts here, guys. Great to have you as always.
Nice to be back.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy month for everybody, I think, and not just the people in this room, but a lot of people that we know outside. And I've been noticing a really weird trend. Apparently, a lot of people's gallbladders have decided to give up on them, because I know like 3 people who either had gallstones or got their gallbladders removed. So what a year, let me tell you.
Well, my husband had kidney stones. That's, I think, kind of in the same area.
I'm
not really sure that he doesn't still have them.
I think the weirdest thing that I've been noticing over the last couple of years is not just how many people are having kidney stones, but how many people are having kidney stones frequently. You know, It's so strange. I know so many people now that have dealt with that. Apparently, someone that I know just had kidney stones this past week. So I'm like, geez. It's weird, but yeah. I think I'll take a page out of Cami's book. It's just been crazy these past couple of years, especially this year, because I mean, it's crazy to believe that 2022 has almost come to an end, and in about a week and a half, we're about to be dealing with probably one of the most intense days that our country ever faced, and that, of course, is Election Day 2022. So that was the hot topic of the day, rock the vote, because that's basically everything that we're hearing about. It's either that or we're going to talk about Kanye West. And quite frankly, I really don't want to talk about him today. I'm not in the mood. But the guy's off. The guy needs help. Plain and simple. He needs help.
He needed help.
But look, I know that where Cami lies politically is very similar to me, but Gina, I have to commend you for keeping such a calm, cool thought process through all of this, because these things really just don't seem to faze you. And I truthfully admire you for that, because there are very few people in this country specifically who do have that mindset these days. So how do you do it?
A lot of it is I don't pay attention to the news. To be honest, I pay attention enough to like what I need to, but as long as I get along with people, like it's whatever.
I mean,
just be a nice person. We can have different opinions on things.
Thank you. I mean, I'm a firm believer in that. I've always had no issues with the way people feel politically. Yeah. I mean, sure, sometimes the conversations that I have with some people, even people that are very, very near and dear to my heart, you know, even though we may not agree in regards to where we lie politically, it doesn't mean that we should hate each other just because of one little thing we disagree with. Not everybody has to be in agreement and in sync with everything that everybody does. Otherwise, like, you know,
shouldn't be either.
What's the point of living? We're not robots.
Right.
We have to go onto all of these websites and click on those boxes and like label traffic lights to prove that we're not robots. So like, why would we want to be robots, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I will definitely say it has been very interesting, because I do watch the news just because of the fact that I just feel that if I don't know what's going on in the world, I'm just going to be, hello, dog. I just kind of feel that if I don't figure out what's going on in the world, it's just like weird to me. Like I just need to know what's happening out there, whether I like it or not. And
I get headlines, but I don't focus on it because it just stresses me out, and I don't.
But one of the few things that I am definitely going to say is that it's been very interesting, because, you know, when you probably both see these, well, I don't know about Cami because she does live pretty much in the middle of nowhere in Arizona. So I don't know where your closest next door neighbor is, but I'm able to see what people are putting on their front lawns. And one of the few things that I have noticed, not just in my neighborhood, but in a lot of neighborhoods, particularly where I come from in New York, not that many people are excited about a certain side of the political coin, and they're all looking towards a specific unified side. It's crazy because I live in cobalt blue New York, and I am seeing a lot of people showing support for the Republican Party. It's crazy.
Well, I live in Illinois and work in St. Louis, and so like Missouri and Illinois are opposites. So I see all of them, all the signs. Like
Yeah,
I get it from both ends.
right.
So a dynamic shift changed here in Arizona. So with the presidential elections of 2020, up to that point, Arizona had been well, actually, I'm going to get this wrong because I haven't been in Arizona for a considerable amount of time, but I want to say prior to 2020, Arizona was a blue state. And then when Trump took office, it became red. And then in 2020, it changed back to blue. And that could be wrong. It could be all opposite of what I just said. But it has a very Republican mindset here in Arizona. We have seen an influx of California residents in the last 2 years starting to infiltrate into Arizona. And so I think there was a panic that we were going to see a trend kind of with what Texas had, don't California my Arizona, basically. And we all know what that entails. So without getting too political and dragging this through the mud, I think that the consensus here is just concerns across the border. I mean, we're having an influx of border issues. And because of that, I think that really has changed a lot of mindset in terms of what does the completion of the wall, because I mean, there's huge chunks of the wall missing here in Arizona. And you know, are we going to finish the project? Are we going to leave it as is? We had where Border Patrol had put in Connex boxes and stacked them pretty high in those blank areas just to keep people from just rushing the border. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people have rushed the border in the last couple of years. So, you know, in an already fragile Border Patrol unit, it's caused a lot of chaos here. Now, I'm accustomed to growing up in a border community. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, so we were a border city as well. So this is nothing new to me. But we definitely have a border crisis on our hands. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that it'll be interesting to see where we go as a country. I know that we hear a lot of churn red right now. But really, for the first time since I had first started voting at the age of 18, I'm not voting for parties. I'm voting for people. I'm
Right.
voting for, you know, a stance. And I think that for me, having seen all the shit that's gone on in the last couple of years and of ridiculous banter between the red and the blue, it's really turned my stomach to, you know, I guess fully backing a party. You know, I understand the importance of certain issues being heavier in certain areas, you know, like the red or the blue are more adamant for certain things, but there's so much on the table right now. You know, the border crisis only skims the surface. We also have abortion rights that we're looking at. We have the overall socioeconomic unsettlement. You know, a lot of people are really concerned with a potential recession. Is it going to happen? Are we going to be able to feed our families in the next 6 months? Are we going to be able to drive our cars? There's a lot. So I think for me, the importance going into this political climate in the next couple of weeks is just, I need to vote for people that have my family's best intent and intentions in mind. You know, how are they going to view the everyday household? You know, it's one thing to say, you know, from a very high standpoint, you know, senators and that kind of a thing, how much money they make. They don't really care about the common medium income of a family of 2 or 3 or 4. But from a local level, that's really where it starts. And so for me, I'm kind of just getting back into knowing who's running locally and then kind of taking that up the chain so I can follow it to the top. And hopefully we'll start to see some change and some shifts in not only how politicians behave and interact with each other, but just a dynamic shift in our country, you know, where we're actually seeing positivity and hope for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the few things that I am looking at as a New Yorker is a whole bunch of things. And part of it, believe it or not, is the border crisis because of the fact that governors from red states are shipping migrants to these sanctuary cities. And let me just say, I applaud them for doing that because I see what I don't look at this as them trying to use these people as political pawns. I seriously personally understand the point that these people are trying to make. And the funny part is the Democratic leaders of these cities and these states that are getting these migrants are too afraid to send them back because they think that if they send them back, then their voters are going to look at them and say, oh my God, what hypocrites are these people? It's unbelievable. But the truth is, I'm thankful that I don't live within the city limits, but I do have to start going back to the city to work. And there's some dangerous things going on in New York City. There's crimes in the subway. People are getting everything from robbed to beaten to slashed to being pushed in front of subway cars. It's scary. And the truth of the matter is, I definitely feel that the reason why we have the leaders that we do, not just in New York, but this goes all the way to the presidency. Let's all be honest here. The only reason why Joe Biden is our president is because people were just sick and tired of Donald Trump and they didn't want him in office again. So that's the main reason why he's there. That's the main reason why the House and the Senate flipped in the middle of his term. And now everybody, and I truly mean everybody, is looking at what we've voted for, and nobody is happy. Because when you take a look at the polls in regards to what the American public is concerned about the most, it's the top three is inflation, it's crime, and it's money. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Social issues like what's going on with abortion is an important topic too. But when it's currently looking at the common voter, what are they trying to think about? Here's what I'm trying to think about. When I'm going to the voting booth, I want to make sure that the person that I put in the office is going to do the following. Allow me to keep putting food on my table. Allow me to continue to support my family by putting money in my pocket. And most importantly, number three, contributing to my Social Security. No offense to people who are extremely upset about what happened with the turnover of Roe v. Wade in the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, abortion rights don't help me with those matters. I'm sorry, they don't. They're important, don't get me wrong, but we're trying to get rid of this 9% inflation problem that we're having. We're trying to lower gas prices, and we're trying to make sure that the American people are able to live their day-to-day lives. Otherwise, everything else that's important is just moot or worthless. Am I wrong?
No, but as a female and as someone who has always been pro-choice, I do look for a politician who is running who does make that part of their platform, because you know, despite the fact that it might not put food on my table, it is inevitably going to affect us down the road, and it is going to affect millions of females across the board.
I don't disagree.
Whether or not we like to, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, whether or not we believe in it, whether or not it's you know, from a religious standpoint or, you know, a personal standpoint, abortions are going to happen.
I agree.
When they do, we want to ensure that there is a safe female mindset behind behind that. We want to ensure that females have a safe place to go, that they have the proper aftercare, that they have the proper medication, because then that ensues a whole other area of issues. You know, as a female who has seen a gambit of issues in her life, and as a female who still sees gender equality as an issue, whether it be in pay, whether it be in treatment, whether it be in just my day-to-day life, you know. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I had an altercation with a male just simply because I had more knowledge than he did, and he wanted to come at me because he didn't like my strong personality, you know? And for the first time in a long time, I lost my shit and I said, oh, okay, go ahead and mansplain it to me, please, because I would like to hear what information you don't have. So we do still have a gender problem in our country. And I'm not trying to make this about, you know, a feminine or a feminist movement or any, that's a whole other can of worms. But
Oh,
to
no.
me as a female and how far we've
Human.
come as a society, it's yes, it's a human right, a basic human right. And it's just so unfortunate that we've come so far to go so backwards. So I feel that if a politician doesn't talk about this, and then all this other stuff, as important as it is, overshadows it, it's going to be forgotten. And then before you know it, we're going to be 20 years down the road and nothing has changed. And women are going to be dying left and right in the streets and in foreign countries and in back alleys and in the back seats of cars because they're not getting basic human right treatment. And it's unfortunate. And, you know, as much grief and back and forth as we hear about Planned Parenthood gives affordable medical care to women in low poverty nations, low poverty communities. It affords women to be able to make discrete choices and to go into these small clinics without having to make appointments with a primary care physician and pay co-pays that they can't afford, or for insurance that they possibly don't have, to get this treatment. And that's even just with a basic pap smear. So, you know, by all means, let us focus on the importance of feeding our families, yes, and focusing on, you know, the impending you know, just tragedy that our country is facing from so many different elements. But let us not forget that women are vitally important. And with as much change as we have seen in our country with the shift in gender as a whole, we need to protect women at all costs. And it is vitally important to me as a female to stand on that ground and not to let it go without, you know, saying something. It's important to me.
Cami, I don't disagree. Everything that you said, I'm with you. I really, really am. I really am. I mean, I got to be honest with you. And this is me speaking as a collapsed Democrat turned Republican. I was really pissed off at the Supreme Court. I was furious. I'm like, seriously? You really wanted to go this route? I was really surprised by that. I really was. And the funny thing is, the guy who's running in New York for the Republicans for gubernatorialship of New York basically said that he's not going to touch the New York abortion rights with a 10-foot pole. And everybody says, well, the Supreme Court justices who were elected in recent years said the exact same thing, and look what happened. So I can see where people are nervous, and I can see that people are scared, and I don't blame them. I really don't.
Yeah, we need to focus on everything. And I think right now, and that's why I say I'm focusing on people versus parties. I'm really digging into the platform, not just the surface. Like I'm guilty of just normally doing, you know, okay, they believe in this and this, and they agree with me on that and that. And yeah, I'm gonna vote for that person. But now I'm like, okay, well, that's great that you agree with me on this and this, but you are so far left or right on this issue that I don't know if I can support that, because that's an important one to me. So again, just digging into these individuals and their background and kind of just trying to project as far into the future as I can, thinking, you know, if this person should get elected, how is this going to overall not only affect me, but my community, my state, and then inevitably the United States, you know? I mean, so it's a weird climate to be in right now.
And what's even weirder is the fact that, you know, there might be a little bit of hope here, but the very interesting thing is that there's a lot of people now, so public faces, whether they're politicians or Hollywood celebrities, a lot of them are finally starting to take off those rose-colored glasses and look at the dangers of leftism and wokeism and all of that stuff. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. Tulsi Gabbard has got some brass balls under that skirt of hers, because what she did publicly was such a good thing, was a proud thing to see. You know, I really commend her for the fact that she did what she did. And even celebrities like Mark Wahlberg and Rob Schneider and even Susan Sarandon, even though she still thinks with a very left side of the aisle mindset, she's seeing what's going on in places like California, and she's like, enough already. These things have to start changing. And it starts with the American citizens going to the voting booth and putting their votes in. And I seriously think that if there's anything that's positive about what's been going on in this country for the last 6-7 years, is the fact that the country has become a lot more politically aware and wants to know who their elected politicians are and what they're all about. And I appreciate that. I mean, like, before Trump became president, people didn't know who their state senators were. And now people know these names. You know, it's a good thing to know that the average person in this country at least now knows who is running their state besides who the president is.
And I said this before too, I feel like 2020 was only the tip of the iceberg. I feel like that opened up a lot of people's eyes. I think it opened up a channel for people to become activists and to become active participants, not only in their own lives, but their neighbors, their communities, their states, you know, and all of these things have a snowball effect. And so now we're kind of here in this climate. We knew 22 was coming, in the sense that a lot of people were left unsettled with the events of 2020 that rolled into 21, and then 22, we were all kind of, you know, I guess pulling the wool over or out of our eyes and kind of releasing ourselves from the fog.
Yeah, because it's also because that the pandemic has pretty much come to an end at this point, and people are now having to realize, oh shit, I actually have to go out of my house now and actually get in contact and start communicating with the real world again. How do I do this?
Yeah, and I think it's a hard thing for some people to swallow, because it's very easy for you to be a keyboard warrior and you know, have all of these ideas and concepts, you know, behind a computer screen. And so many people argue on social platforms where they'll just give their side or what they think is their idea of their freedom of speech, and then they walk away and they don't come back to have a conversation. Yeah, right. And now it's like, okay, that's great that you're you know, awake, I guess, you know, and have been awoken, but now what are you going to do about it? Now what are we going to do? Are we going to just continue to further divide? Because we've seen that that doesn't work. So I think we need to come together, and now that we have pretty much a commonality of the coming together works a lot better than the division, how are we going to make that work, given that we all know how differently we think now? Nobody wants it to go back the way that it was prior to 2020, because I think a lot of positivity came from that negativity. But in the same regard, it was the way that it was presented. It was the way that it was done. It was very unsettled. It was just very chaotic. It was very violent in a lot of cases. And it left a lot of people very apprehensive, on top of having, you know, a pandemic to deal with, a change in their income, you know, and so many other facets. So there was just a lot for the mental psyche to have to deal with. So now we're here, and now we have to make some decisions. So I'm just hoping that some of those individuals that were very outspoken in the last couple of years are going to show up to the polls and are going to be out there, but not just arguing. I really don't want the argument. I can't stand talking to somebody who doesn't want to have a debate. They just want to argue. They just want to be heard and, you know, walk away. I'm done dealing with people like that. And I think that for a lot of us that dealt with those types of people in 2020, because we really had no other choice, you know, we were all stuck at home, and it's whoever had the platform or the following or whatever that we had to listen to. But now it's like, okay, let's have a real conversation. Let's talk. And if you can't, well, then I don't want to listen to you either. You know, I have a choice too.
I got a question for you, Cammie, and this is a big one. Now with the little shakeup at Twitter, are you actually going to come back?
I will give it time. I will see kind of how things go. I've seen, the shakeup over the last few days. But Twitter for me was always just very toxic. I never really enjoyed that space. I always felt very anxious on that space. It felt very unsafe and very insecure. And to have those types of feelings in a social platform, which in and of itself is already unsafe and, not secure in a way, I don't know. I don't know that it's worthwhile to me.
I mean, I'm having some dilemmas because it's been really hard for me to actually communicate with a couple of my friends because nobody's been on Twitter in a while. And I'm just like, how am I supposed to get my friends together for YouTube videos if I don't know how to contact them? Because I'm not touching Instagram with a 10-foot pole. I'm sorry. So you either have to be a very trustworthy person in my life for me to friend you on Facebook, or you're going to have to give me your goddamn phone number. That's the only way I'm going to be speaking to you, because I am not going on Instagram or Tumblr or whatever it is you're using these days. It's not my thing. It took me a ton of time till someone finally convinced me that Twitter was a place to go to connect with people. So I'm not going to another platform. I'm sorry.
Well, Instagram really isn't worthwhile anymore. I mean, it is owned in a way by Facebook, but you really have to be on it all the time now to have any kind of substantial growth, and you're constantly having to make reels, which is nothing. Yeah, it's nothing short of like a different version of TikTok. It's like they try to replicate TikTok's success.
Like, just leave TikTok to TikTok. Give me back Instagram with just pictures. Like that.
Oh my God, TikTok is a monster that I don't even like at all. I mean, it's funny because when the new decade was approaching, I said to people that TikTok was going to be the next big fad. And what TikTok has become is disgusting. It's teaching kids how to be real unadulterated bastards, and I don't like it. I'm just letting you guys know, I'm hoping that TikTok is gone by the time my daughter knows how to use technology. And if it's still there and people are still using it, she ain't using it.
We sell the Moody Octopus, and so many kids come into the gift shop going, look, it's the thing from TikTok.
Oh no.
Or just
no, it's funny because I didn't really think about the name until the other day. A buddy of mine, he's like, oh, well, are you on TikTok? I'm like, no, to me, it just seems like a big waste of time. He goes, well, hence the name TikTok, like you're wasting time. And I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought about it like that.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Neither did I.
So when he said that, I was like, well, that kind of solidifies it for me. I don't need to be on there,
Yeah, I go through phases. Like, I'll go through like a good chunk of time where I'm just like obsessed with it, and then I won't touch it for weeks on end. And then like I made one a couple weekends ago at the Renaissance Fair, because there was this one that we saw. It was like someone like trying not to fall while they're walking. He's just like, don't fall. And then like they look up, it's like this waterfall. I'm like, ooh, pretty. And so at the Renaissance Fair, they had like skeletons sprouted up. So we kept joking, like, don't fall. Ooh, a carcass. So I made that and posted it, and then forgot that I posted it. And one of my friends sent me a message. He's like, you went to the Renaissance Fair again? I'm like, how did you know I haven't posted anywhere? And he's like, I saw your TikTok. I was like, oh, right, I forgot I did that.
No, I use Facebook Messenger a lot. I mean, you guys clearly know because I was talking to you guys on that. And Twitter I still use, but it's just like, Cammie, I'll tell you the truth. Like, remember Katerina, the woman who joined us for our conversation at the nice house on the lake? Well, I've been trying to contact her because we have another recording very soon, and I've been trying because Gina's going to be a part of it over at That's Comical. Cammie and I are part of that channel too, everybody. You might want to check it out. Gina's going to be joining me to discuss Saga Volume 10, and I'm also trying to get Katerina to join that as well, and I'm also trying to get another friend back, Krista from the Bookish Porcupine. She joined me for the catch-up, so she's going to be there too, but I'm just trying to connect with everybody because nobody's on these social media platforms that I've been using. So I'm like, what am I going to do? My whole world is falling apart in so many different ways.
Just send out a bat signal.
If only it were that easy, Gina. If only. I'll send out the Rangers shield if that works.
There you go.
Oh God. But anyway, the most important thing is that we're recording this just 2 days before Halloween. So a lot of the stuff that
My
we're going to
bloody
be
glasses.
the bloody glasses. So we're definitely going to be talking about a lot of Halloween themed stuff. But this show is called The Old, New, and the Awesome, and I just want to feature something awesome first. Cammie would know this well. This may be the greatest Funko Pop that Funko has ever made in my life.
Nice.
This is gorgeous. This is based
it.
on the first appearance of Justice League of America in the 1960s. It was a comic called The Brave and the Bold. It was issue number 28. I've never seen such craftsmanship. All these tiny little pocket pops fighting one big Funko Pop. It's gorgeous.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite Funko Pops that I own. However, I have a new dilemma on these comic book covers. So
Oh,
I
really?
was under the understanding, that you're supposed to keep them in the plastic. So I follow this YouTuber. He's a Canadian YouTuber. He's been on the platform for like 6 or 7 years. I've been following him since he was like a kid. And his name is Top Pops. And he
I
took
watch
it
him.
out of the plastic. I love Top Pops. He took it out of the plastic and it changed my whole world. I was like, oh, you took it out of the plastic and I like it. So and here's the other thing. So when you take it out of the box and out of the plastic, on the back, there's little holes so you can hang it up. And I'm like,
Oh, so
is
that's
so
what the holes are for.
That's cool.
yes. So I'm like, do I or do I not? Because I get it. Like if you keep it in the plastic, the sticker's on the front. But a lot of people say they just take it off and put the sticker either on the front or on the box and it's fine. I don't anticipate selling it, so I might as well like enjoy it, So
Hey,
I'm really
listen.
considering opening them up.
No, you can do that. I mean, I'm going to keep them in the plastic. I mean, I do the same thing with the pop albums, and that's just because of the fact that I'm not going to hang them up on the walls. I'm just not going to because I have other things. I need to put pictures of my daughter on the wall. That's what needs to be on the wall. So if I invited a whole bunch of people to my house and had Funko Pops on my wall, they would think I was out of my mind. But that's beside the point. But no, the comic covers are going to go into a nice spot. I got a new bookshelf that is in the main area of my room down here. There's going to be another one eventually where I'm going to finally make a big purchase and buy a Bose Wave radio because that's the only thing apparently these days that's being made that plays CDs, and I still collect CDs. So I'm just going to have my comic covers on this one bookshelf where all my books and graphic novels are. So it's like the appropriate place to put them. And they're just going to be on display so people can just look at them. And I'm going to be completely fine with that. But hey, hanging them up, now I know what the holes are for. That's pretty cool.
You reminded me
that's
that I
kind of
wanted
what
to
I'm
buy
gonna
the
be
Linkin
doing.
Park one.
The Linkin Park Hybrid Theory album?
The reanimation, yeah.
Oh, the reanimation, because they made the Hybrid Theory too.
Did they? I knew about. Hold on, I had.
Oh no, they made both of those. They made two, and they're gorgeous. I've seen them
I
up
need
close.
both. Okay, hold on. Let me get out of checkout.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
like,
I
only
put it on
pop
my
album
wish
that I
list.
own.
Yeah, I actually have one, soon two pop albums. I have Power Slave by Iron Maiden because I can never have enough Eddies in my life, especially since I just saw Iron Maiden in concert last 2 Wednesdays ago, and it was one of the best concerts I ever went to. And I'm getting She's So Unusual, the Cyndi Lauper album, because that's like one of the greatest albums of all time. But I never thought that I would appreciate those specific things because basically Funko is just trying to make money off the boxes now and not the pops themselves. That's pretty much where they're making the money. But
the Hybrid Theory one is $66, so I'm not getting that one.
You can get it cheaper in certain places. Where are you looking?
Amazon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The reanimation one is only $13, so I'm getting that while it is only $13.
I'll help you hunt down the Hybrid Theory.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I was really surprised because a friend of ours, Cammie and mine, Andy, who's also part of the That's Comical Squad, I never understood why he never picked up the My Chemical Romance Black Parade one. And he said to me, I love My Chemical Romance, Steve, but I saw that and I have some Gerard Way pops myself. He says, this one just doesn't scream My Chemical Romance to me. So I'm like, hey, fair enough.
Fair.
I would love some others. Like we were both agreeing that if they ever made Melancholy of the Infinite Sadness from the Smashing Pumpkins and made a pop out of that woman on the cover, we would both totally buy it.
That would
Yeah,
be a
I've
cool
got
pop.
Ed Sheeran. I think he's the only music one I have so far.
Yeah, they have
And
some
then I
good ones.
just bought Reanimation as you were talking.
Oh, good job. Good job.
Because like
Yeah,
I put it on my wish list for payday and then I forgot about it.
Yeah, there's some other really good ones out there, but I'm just like really curious to see what will they do next. Like, will we get like Animals by Pink Floyd and get like the big inflatable pig? Will we get like Led Zeppelin 1 with a down Zeppelin? Like, I would totally get those. There's so many. See, that's one of the few things I love about Funko because they can just do so many things in so many different ways. The comic covers, you know, they were something that I was interested in right off the bat with Action Comics #1 when they first, that was the first one they made, the first appearance of Superman, and I just love the fact that they had the old 1938 Superman. That's the only reason why I had to have it. But every now and again, because they're making a lot of them, but there's a lot of them that I'm just not interested in. But then there's a
Right.
good deal of them that I am interested in. Like Target just recently made one. They pre-ordered it, and the pre-orders sold out. So I'm waiting for them to officially be on shelves. I want to get the Ultimate Fallout 4 cover, which is the first appearance of Miles Morales Spider-Man. And that's really cool because it's him holding his mask, just like on the comic cover. And I really, really want to get that one.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And I'm
I
still
really
waiting.
wanted the Target exclusive Eddie from Stranger Things, and they sold out so quick.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get
quick.
Eddie from Stranger Things, unfortunately.
I've been into minifigs, so we have this like local minifig Lego shop. that does-
Ahsoka!
Yeah, and so my friend got me Eddie and Steve because they just released their new Stranger Things lineup. They're in my room though.
Speaking of Ahsoka, I actually just watched this today. I just watched those 6 mini episodes, Tales of the Jedi on Disney Plus. They
so
were
good.
fantastic.
Right?
I loved every single episode. And I loved the fact that we finally got something with Yaddle because I was always remembering her from episode 1. I'm like, are we ever going to see something with her? And we did. And my God, that episode was beautiful. I want more.
Yeah, same. I still
Dave
haven't watched the
Dave
new
Filoni, do it.
show.
Oh, Andor?
Yeah, I haven't started it yet.
I am 5 episodes in, and
At
it's
this point, I'm just waiting for it to be done, and so I can
Yeah,
watch all of it.
yeah, it's interesting. It's very deep, very dramatic.
Mhm.
It's definitely better than any of the last 3 movies, that's for sure. I mean, I basically said to people, out of all the Star Wars movies that were made since The Force Awakens, Rogue One has always been the best movie.
I did enjoy that one.
Yeah, Rogue One is a fantastic film, especially with the animation that they did to bring Grand Moff Tarkin back to the story. I really liked the visual effects they did with him. But, okay, so...
Hold on. I need to show you
What?
something. Speaking of Star Wars, hold on. So at the Renaissance Fair, I may have bought a Jar Jar Binks ring.
Okay, you are... okay, first of all, you're talking to someone who has a Jar Jar Binks plushie on his mantle,
Yeah,
and you're talking to someone who actually has the recent GameStop exclusive Jar Jar Binks Funko Pop from the Clone Wars. So
I love it.
I am a Jar Jar Binks supporter, I will say.
We saw this and we started laughing, and the guy in the shop goes, "You found the Jar Jar Binks?" And we went, "Yes." And then I went up to him just like, "I want the Jar Jar Binks ring, please." And then I had to tell him the story about how I once thought that Jar Jar Binks was an Ewok, but I know better now because like I'm a Star Wars now. And then I bought this and I texted my friend who like really got me into Star Wars. Just like, guess what I bought? And he's like,
Listen,
"What?" A Jar Jar Binks ring.
Jar Jar Binks is not as hated as he used to be because the sequel trilogy came out, plain and simple.
I love it.
Okay, so before we get into the Halloween themed stuff, I just want to let everybody know that I did see a couple of movies that we talked about, so I'm not going to go deep into them. I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, and that was a hot mess.
But the
That's all
goats.
that. That's all that. Okay, the goats were the best part of the movie, but ugh, that and the post-credit scene.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw Elvis, and I think that that is the best film of 2022.
That was very good.
I want Baz Luhrmann to get nominated for the Oscar for Best Director, and I want him to win it.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those directors out there that has never truly been praised for the way that he makes films, and I think this may be the movie that does it for him, and I'd very much like it to happen. So I am just going to read off a couple of things. I also found a very interesting reoccurring theme here. Apparently, we seem to watch a lot of movies that were celebrating their 35th anniversaries this year. I want to talk about the one that you saw, Gina. Let me first ask you, was this the first time that you saw The Lost Boys?
Oh, no. Lost Boys is one of my favorite movies. It has been
Oh,
since
yeah.
I was in middle school. But it's
Well-
really interesting. I'm also going to bounce to Gilmore Girls, which I have on the old, because as long as I've been watching The Lost Boys, and I watched Gilmore Girls like when it originally aired, and like I have rewatched Gilmore Girls, I never put the connection of why am I blanking on his name? The head vampire in The Lost Boys is Grandpa.
Kiefer Sutherland?
No, not Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, the guy who played Max.
Yes,
Okay.
Grandpa in the Gilmore Girls. Why am I blanking on his name?
It's okay.
But yeah, I never got that connection, and then I started rewatching Gilmore Girls, and I was like, wait a minute, why does he give me vampire vibes? And then I realized, oh, because it's the same person.
Well,
As much of a horror fan as I am, and as many times as I've seen Gilmore Girls because of my sister, it is here in this moment, Gina, that I just learned that today, hello, this day and this age, that is the same gentleman.
Yep, Edward Herman.
well, I know that Cammie and I had a little Lost Boys connection because I got her the Frog Brothers for I don't remember if it was for your birthday or if it was for the holidays or just because you got me something awesome.
No, remember I got you the Loki.
Yes,
and
that's
Hulk,
what it was.
And I surprised him with it because I never find cool stuff like that in the wild, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think he has this one. So I messaged him. He's like, you better not get it and send it to me, because if you do, I'm gonna have to find you something epic and cool. And I'm just like, no, don't worry about it. So I got it and I sent it to him expecting nothing in return. And he's like, I figured it out. Do you have the Frog Brothers? I was like, no, I don't. He's like, that's it. That's what I'm getting you. I'm like, you don't have to do it tit for tat. It's cool. But
Well,
he did, and I love it because it completed my set.
Yeah, and apparently there's a mystery package that's on the way from Cammie, and I am terrified as to what it is.
It should be there next week. It should
Okay.
be, yes.
I love it.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
a little delayed because of the whole carpet fiasco, but you should be getting
That's
it next
okay.
week.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I have a new Lost Boys mug and everything that I was going to have tonight, and I completely forgot.
now I will also
Oh,
say
I love it.
that, and it's funny because I'm going to connect this with a movie also. So I watched Oliver Stone's The Doors for the first time the other day, and I got to admit, outside of Val Kilmer's performance as Jim Morrison, I didn't like it. I thought that the movie was just so wonky and just so disorganized, but Val Kilmer was a believable Jim Morrison. Like, I believed that really was him. And the reason why I'm talking about this movie right now is because the Echo and the Bunnymen cover of People Are Strange in The Lost Boys is such an amazing cover.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I love it. No, that's an amazing movie. I also love the fact that Bill from Bill and Ted is in The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Alex
I was
Winter.
talking
Alex
to a
Winter,
bunch
I
of-
love it.
I was talking to a bunch of coworkers, and like so many of them have not seen The Lost Boys. I'm like, how have you not seen this? So like I've been feeding it to people because I have like 3
Okay.
DVDs of it.
I wouldn't be
So, like,
surprised.
I'm trying to feed it to people, and like I keep going. If you know about the oily saxophone man, please don't judge the whole movie on that scene. 'Cause, like that's what people tend to know if they don't know anything else.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, as Cammie is someone who also watched these back in the day. Cammie, did you watch the I Love These series on VH1? Like I Love the 80s, I Love the
I did.
90s. So
Oh yeah.
when I watched those, that was when I started seeing all of these great movies
Yeah.
from those decades that I never saw. So I was in college when I watched The Lost Boys for the first time,
Mhm.
and I love it. It's such a fun movie. It was great because it was such a great, unique take on the vampire.
Yeah.
I loved it. It's just fun. It's
It
also
is.
got a lot of comic books in it too, which I also really appreciate.
And then so like the Tales of the Star Wars one, there was a Lost Boys episode, like styled episode, and the animated things that came out last year. And so I was watching it with my friend, and like I got really excited, and he was like, "Why are you so excited about this?" I'm like, "Because it's the Lost Boys."
I feel like The Lost Boys touches a lot of nostalgia. Like a lot of the things that we're familiar with, I think once you kind of see it in a different lens and you start rewatching things that you love, you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And you start connecting things, because Lost Boys, I do find, is connected to quite a bit. It's just a phenomenal movie. It's a phenomenal cast. It's a phenomenal soundtrack. And I think it's one that everybody can enjoy because it's not too over the top scary. It's not super gory. It's a lot of fun. It's good dialogue, you know, and you can't say that a lot about an 80s horror film, a 90s horror film early on, you know. So when you get that good nostalgia from those two groupings, and you're like, yeah, share it with the world, like Gina's saying.
That's what it is.
I like pointing out fun facts too, like the scene where Kiefer Sutherland has the tear coming down his eyes is because he had his contacts in for too long. Like they were only supposed to have the contacts in for 30 seconds, but to get that shot, it had to be longer than 30 seconds. And so the tear was like legit because he was in pain.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Colored contacts weren't a thing without being the hard contacts back then.
Right. No, it's such a fun movie. I love The Lost Boys. I watched it for one of my Halloween double feature specials. So I think we should all talk about what may be one of the best new Halloween films that came out in 2022, because I know we all enjoyed it. Hocus Pocus 2. I was so impressed by what a fun movie. So nice. So nice that they got the Sanderson sisters back. So nice that they really paid homage to the original 1993 film. And it was such a great continuation of the story. And I really liked how they ended it, because it was, to me, it was like there really was nowhere else to go. And I think that what they did was such a great idea. And there's still an opening for a third film.
Yeah, I'm not.
It was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, like I just watched the first Hocus Pocus for the first time like 2 years ago, and so like I'm not the biggest Hocus Pocus person. Like I don't have the kid nostalgia attached to it like most people do. But, like I mean, it was fine. The second one I think I liked a little bit more, but it was enjoyable. I wouldn't say I'm a super fan. But.
I gotta say that the opening scene in Hocus Pocus 2, that young actress that they got to play Winnie, I was like, oh my goodness, this was like, along with that little girl who plays Leia in Obi-Wan.
Yes, definitely.
Like, how are they, you know, like, this is one thing that Hollywood seems to be doing right. They're managing to find these young actors and actresses that can play young versions of these actors. Like, oh my God, another one. The boy who played young Ryan Reynolds in The Adam Project.
Yeah.
Like, he felt like a real young Ryan Reynolds. I love this. And this girl, I swear to God, that felt like someone went back in time, found Bette Midler at like age 12 or 13 and said, here she is. She's going to be Winnie in this one scene. I believe that person, and they said that's how they found her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked by her performance. I loved it. Even the other two Sanderson sisters, they were very believable too.
Agreed.
Because I love that scene.
I was a little skeptical going in, because I read the book, the sequel book, and I hated it. I just thought that they were trying too hard from so many different angles, and it was really disappointing because I do have the nostalgia. I was 12 when the first Hocus Pocus came out, and I remember just having gotten cable TV, and so we got to watch it on, you know, the TV network and everything, and I was just like super excited with it. And then of course, you know, we still bought the well, at that time I think it was the VHS, it might have been the DVD, but then we watched it on replay like a year later over and over and over again until my mom was just sick of it, you know. But the thing is with a nostalgic movie like that, especially for someone like me who is knee deep in the nostalgia, you have to be so careful when you're recreating a sequel with the original cast, with the intent of bringing back that same nostalgia, because the book ruined it for me. It really, like I said, it had such potential. It started off really good, and then it just went in a completely different direction, and I just hated it, and I felt very let down. But then when this movie came out, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go in with very low expectations, but I'm gonna see it because I have to. And I was just so happy the whole time, and I was just so excited to see them back together again, and I loved the direction it went. It was totally different from the book, and it was wonderful, and I just left feeling satisfied and happy, and it really just like started my Halloween season. So I think it did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, the same thing can be said about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I just rewatched that movie and my wife watched it for the first time. She absolutely loved it because of the fact that it just paid, because it felt like that third installment of the Ghostbusters. And like when the original guys just show up, she just like went fangirl crazy because he was just so excited to see them again, you know? But she also really liked how all the young actors that if they decide to make another Ghostbusters, which apparently they have greenlit a sequel, you know, I can believe Finn Wolfhard being one of the Ghostbusters. And apparently, I can't remember the movie, but my wife told me that apparently Paul Rudd was given an opportunity to play a specific role in a movie that someone else would end up doing, and I can't remember the movie, but he literally ditched that project because he said he had to be in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, that's funny.
And him being in that movie was absolutely perfect. That was one of the things that really gave me higher expectations, just because of the fact that I was like, okay, well, if Paul Rudd's going to be in this movie, it's going to be so much fun, because he always adds that charm that every great movie needs.
He, in and of himself, is kind of nostalgic, you know? If he's
Clueless.
there, he just gives you the warm fuzzies. Yeah, I love him.
Okay, so I've got a whole laundry list, apparently, of things, and I'm really curious to see if every single one of these things is actually horror themed. So if I get this wrong, please don't hurt me. So the first things are the obvious. Cammie and Gina, you each did talk about something here that I definitely want you guys to speak about. We'll start with you, Cammie. Halloween ends. The question is, does it really end?
Oh God, yes, it's over. Thank God.
I was gonna go see it, and then my friend got COVID, so we haven't watched it yet.
Okay, so I won't spoil it, but I can say enough. So I was not a huge fan of the two that came before this. The Halloween, I think it was 2018 that movie came out.
So.
I kind of knew where the direction of it was going, because you could kind of sense that this is the beginning of the end. I loved how it started. I loved the direction it was going. I loved the fact that we saw Jamie Lee Curtis kind of hiding out. She was kind of a recluse. She was obviously dealing with all the trauma. You know, she had basically sealed herself away. It was good, and Michael was a badass. The pacing was good, the darkness was good, the Halloween theming was there. And then we got the bullshit that was last year. Okay, Halloween Kills should have never been made. It was an absolute atrocity. It was just, the mob mentality was so gross and so over the top. So much of that movie was just like, oh my God, is this happening? Oh my God, am I still sitting here? And did I pay for this? And then I felt like a bad franchise watcher, because there was a lot of people that really liked it and that got the whole mob mentality and was rooting for that. And I'm like, how can you root for that? That was just stupid. And some of the dialogue was some of the dumbest shit I have heard since the 80s. It was just awful. So coming into this, I was like, okay, I had the lowest expectations of this franchise that I have ever had. And then it started off really slow. And I'm like, okay, what is happening here? Like, where is Michael? You know, there was like a strange buildup. And then you had this kind of sideline story. And again, I'm not trying to give anything away. I don't know how many spoilers you've seen offline, Gina. So I definitely don't want to ruin it for you. Okay, good. So I won't ruin it for you, but I will say that there is a story within a story that either you're going to love or you're going to hate.
Right.
I was here for it until I wasn't. And I'm going to say this with as much delicacy as I can because it had potential to take this franchise off into the sunset maybe 10 or 20 years from now. But the fact that they spent so much time on it and then it felt enormously flat, for a lack of a better phrase, it was just a complete waste of time for the audience because you're like, really, all of that for that? And it wasn't even like a good slasher move, you know? I'm trying to be so delicate with my wording here. There was a cool homage to the beginning of the franchise. If you blink, you kind of miss it though, because it is kind of wrapped around this other storyline that takes you into the movie. And then we have what is left of Laurie's family. So as you know, in Halloween Kills, her daughter doesn't make it. So now we're left with just her and the granddaughter. So the granddaughter kind of has just taken on this I don't give a shit attitude, and that is pretty much her attitude throughout the film, and it's really hard to swallow and to digest with this extra piece that's in there. So again, I don't want to fall too far into it, but what I will say without spoiling the ending for you at all is I feel that Laurie finally got what she wanted. She got her end, and as much as people want to say that Michael was weak sauce, you know, that this kind of came across a little bit not typical of the strength that is Michael Myers. Let us understand for a moment that Michael is in his 60s. Right. He is human. He has pretty much been off the map for about, we'll just, you know, use the movie timeline, at least a couple of years. But the movie does appear to kind of go a little bit beyond that even. So he is malnourished, he's not well. And another beautiful thing that another horror goer that I interact with a lot had said is also keep in mind, every time that Michael has come to grips with Laurie, he's gotten captured and taken to an insane asylum. He's been given medical care, he's been given medicine, he's been taken care of, you know? So he doesn't have that because he's basically been out on his own. So he is at the bottom of the barrel. So he is at his lowest of lows. So to see Michael kind of not come in full strength made total sense to me. I'm fine with how it ended. I don't see anything wrong with it, but there is always going to be people on the other side that will find a million things wrong, a million different ways to dissect it. To me, in the franchise, it's actually my second favorite, despite all of the flaws.
Okay.
That's how much how strong I came out of it.
So what about My Best Friend's Exorcism?
So, okay, it was fun. It was campy. It's based off of a Grady Hendrix novel, which is a lot of fun. But
I've read the book.
guess I was maybe, yeah, so having read the book, I was kind of expecting something a little bit more. But I think that's exactly what it was supposed to be. I think it came off very 80s. But I don't know, the characters were just a little cheesy. But even having watched like the Fear Street saga that happened this past summer,
that was fun.
I kind of felt it was fun, but I kind of felt the same way for the first time in my life about teenage characters, that I really wasn't connecting with them anymore as an adult. And I think that adults do have this happen. I don't think it probably maybe happens until you do reach my age bracket. You know, I'm in my 40s now. In my 30s, I didn't feel that way. I still felt like I could connect to teenagers. Like I got their storylines. It didn't perturb me. Now I get perturbed by teenagers.
It depends on the thing for me. Like there's some stuff where I'm like, no, I'm good. And then there's other stuff that I still like gravitate towards. So like,
yeah, so there was a few characters for me that were just over the top, and I think it ruined the good ones. And so overall, it kind of clouded my overall feelings for it. It was fun. I recommend it. But yeah, if you're a huge fan of the book, don't go into this assuming that the movie is going to be just as great. It's fun. It's worthwhile, but
Fair.
it's not all that.
I kind of forgot they were making a movie, to be honest.
Okay, Cammy, what's The Devil in Ohio?
I want to watch that. My friend, like,
did you watch it, Gina?
Show, right? Not yet. It's on my list. I kind of forgot about it. Like my
Okay,
friend watched it a couple weeks ago.
you
She's like, you have to watch this.
you have to. It's probably one of the most pleasant surprises I've had this year because I
That's what my friend
totally,
said.
it was not on my radar. I
Same.
totally found it by happenstance. And the only reason I clued into it is because Deschanel was in there. And I'm like, oh, I
Okay.
love
Which
her
Deschanel?
Bones. So
Oh, Emily Deschanel?
Emily, yeah, I was gonna call her Emma. I never get her first name right, but yeah, so Emily. She's the girl in Bones, and I love her in that series. She's always been just kind of that quirky, cool character, and I
Yeah.
love the way she speaks. She's very
I didn't
intelligent,
know
she's
she was
very
in that.
articulate. Yeah, she is, and she plays a doctor too, which is super cool
Ooh.
because it kind of gives you those same feels. So
Right.
she's a psychiatrist. You don't get her full backstory though. They kind of give you like little parts and pieces in visions with her because she kind of thinks back on her childhood, but you just get these flash in the pan kind of things. It's just enough to keep you guessing, but the whole thing centers around this girl who ends up in the hospital and becomes her patient. She has a marking on her back of the devil basically, and they're trying to figure out like, you know, what is this going on? Was she, you know, part of a ritual? Was she attempted to be like a human sacrifice? But the girl's not speaking. It takes her a while to kind of open up, you know, obviously she's very traumatized, only to find out this movie is, or the series I should say, is not actually what you think it is, because you think you're going in knowing what this is about. And I can't say it, Gina, because you haven't seen it yet, and I don't want to ruin that plot twist for you. But oh my God, we will talk about this again because this happens to be one of my favorite subgenres of horror, and it caught me completely by surprise because I did not make the connection early on. And once I did, I was like, oh shit, this is even better than I thought it was. And
What
it
streaming
really
service?
was captivating through the end.
What streaming service is it on?
Netflix, I think, right?
Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once now that I'm done with Gilmore Girls, it's at the top of my list.
Okay. This is something that I've been hearing about. I hear the name of this movie. I believe it's a movie. I'm sure it's a movie. If I'm wrong, I'm not an idiot. What is The Midnight Club?
Oh no, it's a series too. It's not a movie.
Okay.
It's a series, also on Netflix, and it's based off of a Christopher Pike novel. And it was super, super, super important for me to watch this because growing up, I was not a huge R.L. Stine fan. Like a lot of people assume I am because I have such a huge Fear Street collection. I was actually hardcore Christopher Pike fan. I was all about him growing up. So to finally see a movie adaptation for the first time in probably 25 years. I think that's when they had made the Jonathan Brandis movie. And of course the name of that movie is escaping me, or the name of that book is escaping me right now. But he did that with his then girlfriend Tatiana Ali, I believe was her name, from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Do I have her name right?
You're right.
Okay, so yeah. They were dating at the time, and then they played the couple in that movie. But nonetheless, that was a made-for-TV movie, and this was so good. I mean, so good. It was better than the book, in my opinion. The characters were lovable. You really just, you were rooting for them. It was creepy. I got scared a couple of times, and that says a lot for a teenage, series for me. There was just really good creepy elements, and these are characters that you will take to the bank. You will have a good time. So even if you're not a huge Christopher Pike fan, maybe you've never even read him before, this is a really good one to just start with on the bandwagon, and then you can later read the book because the book will only add on for you.
Okay, now is this even a horror film because of the fact that it has a word in it that could possibly mean it's horror? What is The Luckiest Girl Alive?
It's a thriller.
Okay.
So not quite a horror, but it's not quite the thriller, I guess, kind of typical thriller. So it stars Mila Kunis. She is an editor-in-chief for a magazine in New York.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah, I was gonna watch that, and
Yes.
I didn't get around to it.
Again, highly recommend, Gina. I think you would enjoy this one. This one was a pleasant surprise for me also. It starts off kind of like she's got the picture perfect life. She's got a really great job, a really great guy, but you can tell there's something on the surface that isn't quite right. So she's got a past, and there is something that has happened in the past that keeps coming up and interfering with her current situation. And so she has to face that head on, and it kind of changes her whole dynamic. It's very female forward. It's a very female empowering. I guess if we're going to go with content warnings, content warning for rape, but beyond that, it's important that females see this, because I really do feel that these are the kind of movies that help give females their voice, no matter how long it's been, no matter how the situation came out, no matter who made you feel any which way, you still have a voice, and there's a way to use it. So I loved how it ended. I love the full circle. I love how it came back around. And I love Mila Kunis, because I really feel like she is the quintessential female. You know, she plays the part very well. She's just so darn amazing. I really like her. I really do.
I do too.
I
Mila
enjoy
Kunis is
everything
awesome.
that she-
Yeah.
I've been a fan of Mila Kunis's ever since that 70s show, and of course I watched Family Guy as well.
absolutely. Oh, I loved her in Family Guy too. Yeah.
Oh my
absolutely.
God. You know, Family Guy is something that's like a staple in my family, particularly with me and my brother-in-law, because sometimes we'll be talking and like something will be like, there'll be like a dead pause, and all of a sudden he will blurt out a Family Guy line. It's hilarious. Like one time I like said something to him, like telling him something really cool that was going on in my life, and he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Lois, this is not my Batman glass. And I'm not kidding. He did this, and he also did this once. Like, and he always gets me to laugh. Like, we were all just like doing things, like getting ready to go out for like a couple of people, like family members, doing something. Like, all right, are we all ready to go? And then we all like go into the car, and then like 5 seconds later, my brother-in-law will just blurt out, "Oh my God, we forgot Meg."
That's awesome.
Okay,
That
Gina.
was a fun cartoon.
Yeah, Gina, it's still on.
Yeah.
Even American Dad is still on right now. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Gina, your turn. What is Virgin River?
Okay, so it is basically a Netflix style show, or not Netflix. It's on Netflix, but it's a Hallmark style show. I believe the 5th season just came out, but I just started watching it, and so
Okay.
my coworker turned me on to it because she's like, "You like Hallmark movies? You need to watch this show." And so basically, it follows our main character, who's this doctor, and she goes through like a whole bunch of like trouble, and I think her husband dies, and so she just needs to get out of town. And so she finds this listing for this town called Virgin River, where they are needing an assistant to the doctor because like he's really old and he's like wanting to retire, but he's really not. It's actually another person in town, like the mayor in town, like puts out the ad without him knowing it. So she gets to this town and like she just starts bumping heads with him immediately. And so it's just kind of follows her journey of like small town living, like kind of like a Hallmark movie. And so like it's 5 seasons, and like so far all 5 seasons has just been like a time span of like 6 months, which is crazy to me. And it gives you all the feels, and it is very Hallmarky, and I love it.
Okay, I really thought that would be Halloween themed because the name was
No.
Virgin River. So I'm like, boy, did that take a full twist. Okay, back to horror.
It is
Back to
very
horror
Hallmark.
because Gina, you're watching something that a lot of people are talking about. You're watching Dahmer on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm actually still in episode 5. Not because of the graphicness of it, but just because it's really slow.
Well,
and
I
a lot,
think
like
that
I already know all the stuff because like I've been really into learning about serial killers and like how their mind works, and like Dahmer's a big one. And I read the graphic novel My Friend Dahmer. Episode 3 of this show is essentially that graphic novel / the movie that they made of the graphic novel, which was kind of cool because like that one I think does it better because it's told from a schoolmate's point of view, and like
Evan Peters is an amazing actor.
Yes, he is fantastic.
I mean, I loved him in Kick-Ass and X-Men as Quicksilver, but this is a very interesting twist for him, to be honest with you.
He is so good at it, and I hope he is getting some great therapy because, like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still in episode 5, so I haven't finished it yet.
Okay.
Just because I've been watching Gilmore Girls, and it's just very slow. Kind of hard to binge it, so you just kind of have to take it in turns. I know a lot of people are iffy with how graphic it is, but like if you know who Jeffrey Dahmer is at all, that's not surprising.
So I'm now officially going to mention that you really cannot say much about this show. So I just want you to let me know if it's good, because my wife and I still need to watch a single episode. You have seen House of the Dragon. We have not watched it yet.
Very good. Just be prepared for a lot of time jumps. They do
Okay.
like 2 episodes and then they jump 5-10 years, and they do 2 more episodes and then they jump 5-10 years. So basically, like, it starts off with the main characters being kids, and then after half of the season you get the actress changes, which is
Gotcha.
like, that's not a spoiler because of the time jump, so they age them up.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay.
there's another big time jump to get all of the kids aged up. So like, just
Gotcha.
know that the time jumps happen, they make sense, and they actually work. Like, a lot of time jumps in shows are dumb, but they did it in such a way, and like with the character changes, that it works. And I really enjoy it. It is everything I wanted season 8 of Game of Thrones to be that we didn't get.
Okay, well, that makes me very happy to know. Yeah, we used to watch Game of Thrones religiously. Like, we would, my wife and I, we would literally like stop everything and watch the newest episode. We even have the full series on Blu-ray, and we haven't even watched them yet, but eventually we will. But House of the Dragon, we DVR'd it all, and we just gotta sit down and watch it. And you are also watching a show that I have heard about, but I don't know anything about. All I know is that there are 4 Funko Pops of them, and that's Letterkenny. What in God's name is
there are
this?
Funko Pops.
Yeah, they're 2 double packs.
That's funny. I had no idea Letterkenny existed, and then
I don't even know what it is.
I went to a hockey game with a friend, and he was like, "Have you watched Letterkenny?" And I was like, "I don't know what this is." And he goes, "It's on Hulu. Essentially, it's in the style of Trailer Park Boys, which really isn't my style." But he said it follows this town called Letterkenny. There's 500 people in the town, and it basically puts the hockey bros, the stoner kids, the farmers, and like everyone else, like all the cliques, against each other.
Oh,
sort of. And so like and then it's kind of done in that Trailer Park Boys style. And so like, I don't know, I watched the first episode and was kind of like, this is kind of stupid, but I laughed a lot. So I kept watching, and I'm only through season 2, so I need to keep going. And each season's only like 6 or 7 episodes, and they're half-hour episodes, but it's pretty funny.
Okay, that's good to know. Unfortunately, I don't have Hulu, so I can't watch it. So
and then apparently they made a spin-off after one of the hockey bros, but he like so far has just been mentioned. We actually haven't seen him. And my friend was saying that the spin-off isn't as good as Letterkenny, but Letterkenny is pretty good. And like it is getting to the point where like there's enough plot going on that I'm just like, I need to figure out what happens. But again, I've been watching Gilmore Girls.
Okay, so I already talked about some biopics that I was watching. So like I already talked about Elvis a little bit. I talked about The Doors. I also watched Chaplin for the very first time, ironically celebrating its 30th anniversary with Robert Downey Jr. And I gotta say, I was a little let down. I thought it would be a much better film, but I was very impressed with the direction that the film went in. And it was really more about Charlie Chaplin, the man, and a lot less about the films that he was in when he was playing the tramp character. But I will definitely say that Robert Downey Jr. was phenomenal in that movie. And I believe he was nominated for an Oscar for that performance in 1993. So I was, look, I'm just happy that I saw it. And the reason why I wanted to see it so badly is because I know that Charlie Chaplin is a legend. He is really one of the true icons of film history. And I was just really curious to see what that movie would be all about. But there's another specific icon that just recently had a movie made based on this person's life, and Cammie saw it, so I didn't have to because I was very interested in seeing it. And that, of course, was Blonde, starring Ana de Armas.
So I didn't finish it. I just want to say that right now.
You told
it was
me.
so hard, so hard to watch. I don't know everything there is to know about Norma Jean, the great Marilyn Monroe. I won't claim to. I just know that she was always an intricate female figure in my life because my aunt was obsessed with her. And then I became acquainted with her in my early teen years when I started to study the JFK assassination. And of course, she's tied into that. At which point, things came up, you know, through cinematography and things of that nature, where I would become acquainted with some of her film and, you know, all of these things. So to me, she was just this beautiful Hollywood socialite. Of course, she's iconic, she's legendary, she's all of these things. So when this came out, I absolutely loved the lead actress, and I thought, you know,
Yes.
this would probably be a really great film. You know, there was a lot of talk of, you know, her acting ability in this, and the way she portrayed Marilyn, and it was just really superb. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. It doesn't quite look like my cup of tea. It was tragic porn. Oh my God, it was so hard to watch. So I don't know the truth behind this, and that's why I prefaced it with, I don't know everything there is to know about Marilyn's life. So if in fact a lot of this did happen to her, God save her, because Jesus, it was so hard to watch. There's a ton of sex scenes, just they're back to back to back. I mean, just how she was kind of just used and abused, you know. But it's not necessary. Like, here we are 60 years later. Why now? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? What are we proving here? What is the point of all of this? And can we not just let a legend lie? Can we not just let her legacy be what it is? Do we have to do this? Do we have to turn up all her ugly, dirty secrets and skeletons in her closet and things of this nature? I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part that was really a bit of a shock to me was when I first saw the trailer, because look, you know me, I'm someone who likes to learn about Hollywood icons and people in the music industry and stuff like that. I love myself a good biopic. I mean, like I said, right now, my favorite film of 2022 is Elvis. And I wanted to learn more about Marilyn Monroe and Ana de Armas. You know, like, I've seen some movies that she's been in. Like, I loved her performance in Knives Out. I wish that she was in the last James Bond film for more than 20 minutes as Paloma, because I said to my dad when we went to go see that movie, if they ever wanted to do a spin-off of James Bond with a female lead, there's your girl. My God, she was fantastic in those 20 minutes in No Time to Die. So hearing that she was going to play Marilyn Monroe, what a great idea. What a great casting. But when I found out that the movie was rated NC-17, that was when the red flag came up. And I was like, what is it about this movie that is rated NC-17? And Cammie, we talked on the phone when you told me about this, and that was basically when you said to me, Steve, do yourself a favor and don't watch it, because you will just be extremely depressed. That's the exact words she said to me. She said, you will be depressed.
I was just so sad, you know. Again, I don't understand the creative take behind it. I'm sure that if there is some truth behind the visual imageries that were shared, I think the only message there is just that it was a truly tragic life. But I don't think that it's necessary to portray that now. I think that had we gotten this 30 years ago, you know, maybe even 40 years ago, I don't know, but well, I mean, yeah. If you look at some of the documentaries though of people that were there when it happened, you know, when she passed, nobody talked about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to give details. So that should say something. Let it lie, let it go. Just let her legend, let her iconic image live on, but stop bringing and trudging through her tragedy. It's not necessary.
Because that's the other thing. It's like, I was really shocked, much also like the Elvis film. I'm like, I'm really surprised that it took so many years to actually make biopics about people like that. You know what I mean? It's like, I could talk to so many different people, and they always say, like, who is a famous person that you would love to see a film made about? And you know how many people are now saying they really want a biopic about Michael Jackson? But there's another tragic figure. I mean, you know, based on what happened with Blonde, do you think the directors are not going to want to open those doors and find out what happened in Neverland Ranch? I mean, for crying out loud, we also now officially have a biopic about Weird Al Yankovic. So it's like, they can go in any direction that they want, you know? And I just feel that there are certain icons that I feel should get a biopic. Like, you know, we never really got a truly great biopic on, if not all of them, at least one of the Beatles. And maybe it's just because of the fact that the Beatles are just, you know, that iconic group that nobody wants to see tainted. I mean, I know for a fact, and it's kind of crazy, but apparently there's a script in Hollywood right now. It's been going around Hollywood for years. There is a script about the guy who killed John Lennon. Like, there is a movie to be made about Mark David Chapman, and nobody wants to touch that project because of what he did.
Right.
But you want to know something? You know, let's talk to you about this, Gina, because you're watching Dahmer. Sometimes people are people not interested in the mind of a killer. Like, what was it that caused Mark David Chapman to kill John Lennon?
I think it would be interesting, and like I'd watch it, but
I would too.
I think also, like, this day and age, people are taking it a little too far. Like, the other day at work, we saw a person with a t-shirt that said choke me like Bundy and whatever, like Dahmer, and like that is super poor taste. Like, why is that even a thing that we're selling? Like, these are real people that did terrible things. Like, yes, it's one thing to be interested and fascinated by the mind of these people and like want to know more, but it's another thing to be like weirdly fantasizing it. And like, I know that was a big thing with the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie that came out, because they're like, oh, well, he's, you know, too much of a pretty boy. It's like, well, that was the point of Ted Bundy. Like, he was a pretty boy. Like, that's how he was able to get his victims. Like, that was the whole point of it. But the fact that people, you know, in their 20s and 30s are like idolizing these serial killers from like the 70s, it's like, stop. Like, they're not fictional characters. Like, this is real things that happened.
Yeah, because we're never going to get a movie about Charles Manson. That's for sure.
Right.
I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the closest you got to Charles Manson, but it was done in the only way that Quentin Tarantino could do it. But it's also very interesting because, like, you know, Cammie, you'll agree with me on this one. Think about the mafia. So many people glorify and idolize the mafia and all of these things that we have in pop culture, from The Godfather to The Sopranos, because people are just so interested in the life that these guys lived. Like, you know, I am somebody who is a big fan of movies that take on historic topics or historic people that you don't get enough of in the history books. And that's why I loved a movie that I finally watched. I finally saw Belfast, directed by Kenneth Branagh, and it was a beautiful film. And I don't learn much about the Troubles that took they were called the Troubles started in the late 1960s and pretty much lasted for decades in Northern Ireland. Like, I didn't know much about this stuff. And I just thought that it was so interesting for Kenneth Branagh not only to show us those events in a certain capacity, but to show them through the eyes of a child. I thought that that was one of the most brilliant things to do, because it was just so interesting to see that even when things are very dangerous, the kids still manage to find ways to keep their innocence in some shape or form. It's a very charming film. I mean, there are some very dark points in that movie, but this may be Kenneth Branagh's best film. And it's sort of his own biopic. He's even admitted that. And I just really thought that it was a very charming film, and I could understand why it was nominated for Best Picture. And also, the fact that it was filmed in black and white is really what makes it stand out and very special.
Yeah.
Have I ever seen it, by the way?
I haven't yet. It's on my list.
You really should see it. It's on HBO Max right now.
Okay.
It is such a good film.
I'll have to add that.
I was very impressed.
Like another thing, like, we want these movies about like these people that are like so fascinating, but at the same time, how much stuff do we have about Dahmer? How much stuff do we have about Bundy? Like, can't we start getting stuff about like other people and like other interesting factors? And like, there's so much material out there about Dahmer that the fact that everyone was freaking out about this show, I'm like, how do y'all not already know all this? Like,
Yeah,
He's
and
one
there's
of
so
the
many
most well-known serial
Well,
killers.
documentaries.
well,
Right.
no,
And like I
don't
get
think
it.
it's
People don't watch documentaries often. Like this is more of a show.
That's such a
But
pity because documentaries are some of the best movies out there.
agreed. It's just interesting that we keep getting
I-
stuff about Dahmer and Bundy and like no one else, you know?
Well, here's my hot take on it, and I won't go too deep into it because my fascination with true crime vastly changed a few years ago when I read I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Yes.
There was a opening line in the intro to that kind of just stayed with me very heavily. And that, and I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but it was something to the effect of, when I read true crime, I am actively under the understanding that there's a victim on the other side of this story,
Yeah.
that this person was someone's mother, someone's brother, sister, what have you. And by partaking in this, that needs to stay, with me, because although we are fascinated by true crime and we want the details and we want the who, what, where, when, why, how, and everything that led us up to the moment of capture, if there is that kind of inevitable ending in that type of story. But now, being an active participant in true crime, I really take a back seat because I don't want to put forth that kind of effort in reopening those wounds for victims' families. And I think that it's not so much that we don't have a lot out there on Dahmer and Gacy and, all of these serial killers. I could go on and on, but I think what ends up happening is you get a dynamic every, say, decade where a film goer comes into this thinking, oh, there's a new generation of people that might not know, that might not have the facts, and this is a good selling point. So since I know this will sell, and I know this will be something people will watch and it will get the views, even if it's 15 minutes of fame, I'll take it. And so they recreate these stories and they add a little bit of information, or they tweak something, or something may have come into new development. And so all of a sudden, these serial killers become forefront again. They're never going to go away, but I do not participate in these serial killers because I don't want these sadistic bastards to get any more time. They've already had their day in the sun. I would like to now go into true crime in a different way. If I personally would like to read the story and I feel that, there's something to talk about, fine, I'll share it on my platform like YouTube, or I'll share it on Instagram, or, something of that nature. But I'm going to be very cautious leading in, because this Dahmer thing, which I have not watched and I will not watch, I have no interest in, has rekindled some of those feelings for some of the victims' families. And yet we tend to kind of sweep that under the rug. We, as a society, are so enamored by glorifying the serial killers because it's cool, and for whatever reason, people glorify these people, like writing to a person in prison. I've never understood that. I've never understood why a perfectly attractive female who can go out and date anyone she wants on the outside world chooses to write letters and marry or engage themselves to someone who is spending the rest of their life behind bars. Never in a million years have I understood that concept. Furthermore, the true crime aspect for me also was the why. I wanted to get inside the head of these killers and know, why did you do what you did? What got you to the point of thinking the way that you thought to actually take a human life? And then that took me to another story. And again, I won't get into too much detail, but the Columbine incident that took place in 1999. I was in high school when that happened. I was the same age as Eric and Dylan. I wanted to know how two young men that were my age could think that it was perfectly acceptable to kill their classmates. I spent almost an entire 2 decades studying the case and trying to get inside their minds and their heads. And then finally the 20th anniversary hit, and I coincided 2 books. I read Columbine by Dave Cullen, and I read, I believe it's Dylan's story by Dylan's mom. She wrote kind of like a mom's, it's not so much like it's not so much like the inside of the story, but it's kind of her perspective, from her family's perspective, what they went through, what she personally went through as a mother, and kind of trying to take away all the fluff that the media had put on her son and just kind of tell it from a mother's eyes. And then I realized in that there was a kind of a preface to another book, and it was about kind of the psychosis, the why, you know, people do it. And very definitively in that book, both she and the reference to this book said, if you're in true crime and you're reading this because you want to know why, you need to stop, because you're not always going to get the answer. There's not always a why. You're not going to know why they thought the way that they did. For some, it's part of the game. They want you to keep guessing because that's what keeps you coming back.
Right.
And between having read that, you know, a few years prior, and then having followed up on the Columbine, my whole theory of, I guess my allure of true crime completely took a turn, and I don't want to vest my time into these stories because it's tragic. At the end of the day, it's tragedy. And it took me nearly 3 decades to make that decision, but that doesn't mean I won't be an active reader of true crime. I just don't vest myself in it the way that I used to. And that kind of takes, you know, us back to the point, Steve, that you were talking about the mafia. I have a huge fascination for the mafia, but not to the same degree that I did, because at the end of the day, they're ruthless killers. They've done some really heinous, ugly things, but because Hollywood has glorified it in the name of Corleone and Soprano, people don't look at that. They look at the money and the stature and the status and the suits and the women and all of this, you know, the cars.
Yeah.
And it's like, but what did it take to get them into that ride? How many bodies were slain to get them into that house, you know? So I take an active backseat as a participant now, knowing that there's so much more to these stories and to these people. And we just have to find some human compassion and decency when we're approaching these. I don't think that there's anything wrong with creators creating new stories if there's new information to tell, but only if it serves a purpose to the general society. Are we helping or are we hurting? And I think we're very tone deaf as a society, and we're not asking those questions anymore because we're no longer empathetic. We're very about the now and the likes and the follows and the 15 minutes of fame, but we're not about the consequences of the actions. And we need to
because that's a very interesting thing, because speaking of tragedies, there's another biopic that's actually coming out towards the end of 2022. Are any of you interested in the movie about Whitney Houston?
Not really.
Yes, I am.
I'd like to see that. I personally would like to see it. I mean, I know that the way that she left was not the greatest of things. And I know that her marriage to Bobby Brown was not, again, I don't know the truth, but I know that what came out of it was not good for her, considering what she was, especially when she was discovered and when she blew up in the 80s. But again, you know, it's that famous voice, you know, like you want to know. Like, let me throw out a crazy question as music fans. If someone actually wrote a great script and there was a great cast and there was a great director behind it, would you see a biopic about Kurt Cobain? Because I would.
It depends on who it was done by. And again, kind of going back to what you were just talking about Whitney Houston, the only reason I have an interest in it right now is because it looks fun. It looks lighthearted. And it looks like it's going to showcase the highlights of her career and maybe just touch on, you know, the light tragedies in the end. And I don't say light like what happened to her was light. I mean, like, it looks like it might lightly touch that with delicacy versus making that the focal point, because it doesn't seem dark and ominous to me. I mean, everything I've seen about this just seems fun. So with Kurt, do I love Nirvana? Absolutely. Do I love him as a musician? 100%. But there's so much tragedy surrounding him, and there's just so much darkness that ensues when his name is mentioned. if the wrong person tried to portray that story, it could lead us into darker places. And so it would have to be done very delicately. I mean,
Yeah, it's just because of the fact that, you know, in the last couple of years, we've gotten a lot of biopics about musicians, and they've all turned out to be great and unique. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody, I loved. Rocket
too.
Man, I loved. I thought Rocket Man was such a unique way to show Elton John's story, even though some of it was very tragic. But Taron Egerton was completely brilliant, and I loved how they
Yeah.
sort of made it a musical, which I really appreciated. And once again, I go back to Elvis, a very unique way to tell his story.
Mm-hmm.
and while we're talking about music, before we get too off base, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Mick Mars for his
Yeah, I
decades and
heard.
decades of service to Motley Crue. He has finally taken a bow and he has left the stage for good. He has retired, and Motley Crue is my all-time favorite band, and I am brokenhearted, but I am also relieved that he has put his health first. That was why I was a huge supporter of the 2018 tour and the end of Motley Crue, because I knew that allowed Mick Mars to go out on top. And God bless him. I mean, he really tried to go back out there with the guys this go round. But you can tell the last walk off stage, it looked painful, and it broke my heart. And I'm just happy that he's going to go home and take care of himself. But I just wanted to put out into the universe that I love him. He was always my favorite member of Motley Crue. He really gave Motley their sound. He was the tone of the crew, and he's going to be missed. But it's not like he's gone. He's just gone off stage, and it's overdue.
Because if I'm not mistaken, it's because he has multiple sclerosis.
No, he has I couldn't pronounce it even if I tried. It's called AS. It's a degenerate spine disease.
Yes, I know,
so
I
basically
know.
his spine is compressing, and so any kind of standing for too long just completely pushes his discs together.
Yes, exactly.
So it's extremely painful to walk, to stand. I mean, it's just unbearable pain.
Yeah, I know. It is sad, but you know, we talk about all of these tragedies, especially when it comes to famous musicians and celebrities, and it's still crazy to say that Keith Richards is still alive. Moving on.
Real quick, while we're on music, though, I've seen.
We don't know how he's still alive, Kevin. We don't know how he does it. I say that just one more thing. I always say every time a beloved celebrity dies, Keith Richards gets another 5 years of life. That's what I always say. Gina, if you will.
But real quick, while we're on music, I've seen 21 Pilots, Panic at the Disco, which I'm wearing the hoodie, and Post Malone this month. And I was at the show where Post Malone fell in the hole and cracked his wrist.
Oh, shit. Whoa.
That was intense.
I don't know what's worse, the fact that you saw that or the fact that I was at the Jets game where the butt fumble happened.
Yeah, it was like, I was so high up, I didn't see the hole at first, but then I was going back through my video that I was taking, and like you could briefly see the hole, and then seeing the video up close, like he hit hard. And the fact that he came back out and did 4 more songs for us was amazing. Like, that man is an angel.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm sorry, but before we get too off topic, since she brought up shows, I can't go a minute past saying I got Blink 182 tickets for next summer, and I'm freaking stoked. I am so freaking stoked. I've never seen Blink, and I'm
so jealous.
I've seen them like twice.
I am jealous of the both of you because I saw them live in 2002, and they sucked.
Oh no! Yeah, I saw them.
But again, if I may, this was when they had just done "Take Your Pants Off and Jacket," and when they made their self-titled album in 2003, and they became a completely different band, and I love what they've become. It makes me jealous that you guys are seeing them now, and I saw them then when they were still like immature little boys.
I think I became a Blink 182 fan, like hardcore in 2003, because, you know, like I watched them, I saw them come up. They were obviously in the shuffle because I was a big like pop punk fan, but they were never really my favorite. Newfound Glory will forever be my favorite pop punk band. But I always wanted to see them. And every single time they were on a Warped bill, they would never come to the venue in my
Oh,
city. So I never
no.
got to see them. And I'm like, come on, I need to see Blink. And then they split up. And then, of course, Tom went on to create Angels and Airwaves. And I was like, okay, whatever. I saw Angels and Airwaves. They're great. Don't get me wrong, but it's not
Still not the
Blink.
same.
And then they got back together. And then, of course, a tragedy struck, with Mark. And we were like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then they decided, let's do this one more time. And I was like, hell yeah, I am not missing this. And so I bought tickets the minute they went on sale. I was like, yes,
Nice.
I am doing this.
Oh, like I
That's gonna be
said,
cool.
I saw them in 2002, but the main reason why I actually went to that concert was because the opening act was Green Day, and I am a diehard Green Day fan, and I will say Green Day tore the house down. I was
Yeah, I've
like,
seen them
I
live
could have,
before, too.
I could have just left the concert after they finished, and I would have been a complete happy camper. And in regards to Blink-182, I am still waiting on my Enema of the State triple pack Funko Pop set. I am so excited for that to finally come out. So let's get into a couple of additional things before we get into the really good stuff. So I watched a couple of other movies to celebrate their anniversaries. I watched Spaceballs for the first time in a long time. It is still not my favorite Mel Brooks film. My favorite Mel Brooks film will always be Robin Hood Men in Tights. That is the better film in my opinion. I love that movie so much, but I still will say, because I'm such a big movie person now, because I didn't know this when I saw Spaceballs for the first time, I love the fact that John Hurt came back to recreate the scene from Alien for Spaceballs. I kind of love that to death, because I love how it happens in Spaceballs and he goes, oh no, not again. Like, now I understand that whole scene, because I saw that movie for the very first time when I was like 8, and I didn't get it. But
Yeah.
now I get it, and I think it's beautiful. And I watched Wall Street for the first time in a long time to celebrate his 35th anniversary. And as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Oliver Stone, that is definitely one of his better films. And my God, that Greed is Good speech from Michael Douglas, the one that pretty much got him the Academy Award for Best Actor. What a great speech. It's such a great film. And I know that, I believe, Cammie, you're also a fan of the movie Boiler Room, as I am.
Oh
And
God, I did watch that movie religiously for like a year after it came out. Well, when it came out on DVD,
Wall Street is the
over and over.
And Wall Street is pretty much the grandfather of Boiler Room.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And it's a great pairing, but yeah, it stands alone as its own stroke of genius. So much better than the Wolf of Wall Street bullshit that I subjected myself to, that I can never rinse out of my eyes with enough bleach. But yeah. It's definitely a classic, and it's one of my favorite Michael Douglas movies for sure.
Yeah. Gina, you also played a video game called Disney Dreamlight Valley. What is that?
I am obsessed. It is essentially Animal Crossing meets Stardew Valley, but Disney. And so it just came out like at the end of September, and like it's you go into essentially Magic Kingdom kind of, but like it's this dream valley, and there's these black thorns everywhere, and you have to start getting rid of them. And like through different quests, you bring in new characters and you unlock worlds and like all this stuff. And like an update just came out to give us Scar. And there's just so much more stuff that they can give us with new updates. And it is addictive. I've got multiple people addicted to it. Like,
okay,
it's paused right now on my TV.
It
was paused on my TV.
I've also been seeing a whole bunch of ads for another Disney game. Does anyone here play Mirrorverse?
No.
I don't know what it's about, but apparently it's popular because they're making action figures out of it. I don't know.
Interesting. Never heard of it.
Okay,
but yeah, Disney Dreamlight Valley is like, if you like Animal Crossing or Stardew and you like Disney, it's worth it.
So I saw the 2 newest additions to the MCU, and I know that there are so many people out there, and I know what they're all saying about She-Hulk Attorney at Law.
I still need to watch that.
I have to admit, maybe it's because my expectations were practically 6 feet under, that I kinda, sorta had fun with that show.
I think good things about it.
I kind of found it fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the last episode was a little bit weird, and I definitely will explain, you got to really see it to believe it, but
Okay.
I don't know. I kind of had fun with that show, but I definitely want to say Werewolf by Night. Oh my God. That was the biggest surprise because Werewolf by Night is a comic that I only know about. I never read it. I know that that's the reason why we have Moon Knight right now, but wow. Cami, I will definitely tell you as a horror fan, if you want to see Marvel take on horror correctly, this is pretty much the best way to do it. It was so cool because number one, it was in black and white. It's a 52-minute special. Number two, there's so many homages to the Universal movie monsters. That's another really cool thing about it. And it's sort of like the Hunger Games meets the Universal movie monsters meets Clue. There's no comedy in it, very little comedy, but it definitely is interesting because basically it's about this family of monster hunters called the Bloodstones, and the patriarchy of the family died. And in order to get the family heirloom, the monster hunters basically have to go out into the maze of the Bloodstone mansion and basically fight to the death to get the Bloodstone. And there is this one person that is there that is not who he seems, and basically just take it from there. It was fun. It's a quick watch.
It's on my radar. Well, since you put it on there, so I will be watching it.
Okay, now here we are.
Before we get to it,
Yes.
I want to talk about Gilmore Girls for just one more second.
Okay, sure.
The reason why I put Gilmore Girls on the list is because watching it, like when I was a teen, when it was on, most of the old school movie references I didn't understand. But since I've gotten older and I've like really expanded my movie knowledge, like all of their references I get, and it is fantastic. Like it is worth rewatching. Like they did a Roman holiday reference that just like completely went over my head the first time because I hadn't seen it, and like now it's one of my favorite movies, and so like I understood that. And then like they keep bringing up like all these like old 40s actors and actresses. I'm just like, I've seen that movie now, I understand this. So like rewatching Gilmore Girls has been such a treat because I understand all of the old school references now.
It's also a funny thing that you're saying that because I have a mission, and I know that it's a mission that my wife will allow me to do, but one of the old cartoons that I watched when I was a kid that I still have on DVD, I have Animaniacs.
Yes.
And my goal is that I want my daughter, when she's like maybe 8 or 9, I want to watch the series with her. And then I want her to get to her 20th birthday or her 21st birthday, and I want to rewatch the show with her again so she can see everything she missed.
Yeah.
Because I still, to this day, cannot believe how they got away with some of those jokes.
A lot of it was over our head.
Yeah.
But like, you don't but you don't understand. You don't understand. There's a specific joke in that show that I am surprised was even allowed on network television. It was so it was the episode that they were detectives and they were on a boat and they had to solve a mystery. So Yakko tells Dot to dust for Prince. So a couple moments later into the episode, Dot screams, "Hey, I found Prince!" And she's holding the singer Prince. And then Yakko goes, no, fingerprints. And then she looks at Prince and says, "I don't think so."
I remember that.
I was like, how did they get away with that?
Oh, geez. We do that a lot in like kid stuff, and like we went to the Renaissance Fair all month, and like our favorite performer, his stage name is Crazy Boy Coy, and he's a juggler. And every single like show that he does, he starts off with like really dumb, jokes, and he goes, "It's okay, you can laugh. Your kids won't understand me." And like it's so true. Like they have no idea like, the references that he's getting.
No, but the purpose I'm trying to make here is that adults were watching that show too. Like, how did that actually get onto live television? Because that's a very dirty joke.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff like that.
Because you got to think back. So when did Animaniacs debut? 94?
93, 93.
93, 94? Okay, 93. So I'm just trying to think. I was what, 12? So I don't recall parents watching cartoons the way
right.
you and
Yeah,
I
that's
watch
right.
cartoons. now.
That's right.
So, and I say that with all like sincereness, because we were the generation that really pegged this whole nostalgia block. We got the
Yeah.
coolness of the 80s and the 90s and some cool stuff from the 2000s, but we stayed youthful. I mean, for
Yes.
fuck's sake, look at, our walls. We are
Right.
Funko Pop deep, we carry like shit. I just bought all the Flintstones on DVD.
I just started
So, like,
rewatching that show. I'm watching that on
I'm so
HBO
excited.
Max.
It's on
I found the
HBO Max.
OG ones, and they were wrapped in cellophane. I was like, "Holy shit, this is awesome!"
No, I'm already
I'm
up to
just
season 2. I'm watching
love
season
it.
2,
maybe
and I remember
maybe I'll
watching that
catch up
show.
with you. We're the generation that, and I know Gina's just slightly younger than us, but I point to you, Steve, when I say this. We are the generation that we saw technology enter our homes. We saw
Yeah.
computers enter our classrooms. So we handle physical media a little bit differently. We kept our childhood toys for the most
Mhm.
part. I mean, I still cringe about some of the things I let go, but we have kept the youth alive. And so in that, we are the adults that are cartoon watchers. We are the
Yeah.
ones that are still going to the theater and watching movies. We are finding joy, like Gina just said, of going back and rewatching shows to find how we can now connect to them in our adult years. We are a very unique generation, and we really need to hold on to that for everything, all the beauty that it's worth. Because I say that to people a lot, go back and rewatch One Tree Hill, go back and rewatch
Mhm.
Gilmore Girls, go back and rewatch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. A lot of the things that you missed, you will get now because
Mhm.
you missed the connection to other things because you weren't quite old enough or cool enough, as I like to say it. But now we are having the joy and the beauty of sharing this with our nieces, nephews, sons, and daughters, and taking it to a whole nother generation. But a lot of it, yes, is it dated? Like, even going back and watching Buffy right now, yeah, it's dated, but it's still
But it's
freaking
still
cool
fun.
because it's fun, and I still have all the other shit that I can reference that they're talking about. So
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
as outdated as it is, I can guarantee you I've got the DVD on the wall that I can go back and reference the episode or the character or whatever that they're talking about, So I think the beauty in it is that, yes, was a lot of that shit over our head? Absolutely. But our parents weren't us. Our parents weren't doing the same
That's
goofy ass shit
true.
that we were doing, So
Yeah.
Very cool.
there's a weird dynamic there, but it's also a kind of a cool thing because sharing it with these new generations, it's kind of happening in a different way,
Yeah.
and it's awesome to watch.
Yeah, because I've been watching, like I said, I'm watching the Flintstones now on HBO Max because I've been meaning, because like they had the Flintstones and the Jetsons, so I'm definitely going to also rewatch the Jetsons as well. But
Yeah, I
it's
wanna
so
rewatch the
interesting
Jetsons.
that I'm watching the Flintstones, and I remember that my mom let me watch that show when I was like a really, really small kid, like at 3 years old, 4 years old, and I'm watching some of the topics on this show, and I'm like, how did I actually enjoy this show? Because I didn't apparently understand anything that was going on the show. I was
The
just
colors,
enjoying
the
watching the colors,
dinosaurs.
the dinosaurs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You're just
Gina,
watching for the aesthetic.
now for Gina, I will say something that I ironically said in an episode that on That's Comical that Andy and I recorded in regards to age gaps. The burning question is, when it comes to Gina hanging out with Cammie and me, the question is, are Cammie and I immature for our age, or is Gina just wise beyond her years?
Yeah, I've always
That's the big
connected more
question.
with the older generation. Like, I've always connected more with people just a little bit older than me than I did ever with my own age group. So
Yeah.
take that as you will.
Yeah. And then
My best friend is like 5 years older than
yeah, I mean, and I'm rewatching The Simpsons right now as well. I'm on season 9, and it's not that I didn't miss anything. It's a matter of me just like remembering all of these great jokes that I loved when I was a kid. But yeah, again, Animaniacs, that's a show that if you haven't watched it in a while, you really need to go back and watch it, because some of these jokes, like
I've been wanting to rewatch it.
Yeah, because I also love this one episode when they were trying to do the Tale of Thanksgiving, and Miles Standish was trying to get the Warner Brothers turkey, and they were Indians. It was really funny. And so he says, "Enough of this nonsense. Now give me the bird." And Yakko goes, "Well, we'd love to, but the Fox XX won't allow it."
Oh, that's fun.
And then there's that, and then there was
that one.
and then there's the episode when the teacher came to try and get them under control. That was hilarious. And she goes to Yakko and she goes, "Yakko, can you conjugate?" And he's like, "Me? I've never even kissed a girl." Like that's hilarious.
Oh.
No, it's okay. I'll conjugate with you. Good night, everybody. I'm like, I see what they're going at. I see what they're getting
Right.
at here. Okay, Cammy, it's time. You can finally start gushing. Let's close out this episode and talk about the Sandman.
Oh my God. I cannot say enough good things about. I've been waiting for you to watch it, first of all, Steve. So I'm
It
so
took me
glad
a
you finally
while. I'm
freaking
sorry it
finished
took
it.
a while.
That was like waiting on pins and needles, because I watched it in 2 days. That's how much I loved it. I could
Most
not
people
stop.
I still
I'm like,
haven't watched it.
I will
oh my
tell
God,
you.
Gina.
I will tell you
Watch it.
something. It was not, again, it took me a while to watch the whole show, but it wasn't because of the fact that I didn't like it. It was, every
Fine.
episode was epic. And that's the reason
Oh my
why
God,
it
yeah.
took me a while, because it's so interesting, because Netflix, the fact that they're still trying to figure out if they want to make a season 2 or not is idiotic, because it's a beautiful show. Everybody that watched it absolutely loved it. But the
Right.
reason why they're so hesitant is because of the fact that the ratings were not as good as they thought, because apparently outside of Cammy, not that many people binged it. And I unfortunately am one of those people that didn't binge it, because I had to really absorb every single episode, because every episode is a grand story within itself. So I really took my time watching those episodes, and they were all fantastically done.
Oh, and please don't get it confused. I didn't binge it because I was trying to give Netflix what they wanted.
Oh,
I
of course
appreciate the
not.
fact that people.
You just got sucked into it, plain and simple.
Okay, yes, 110%, because holy shit, the imagery of that show is everything I've ever wanted in
It's
life
gorgeous.
from anything I've ever watched.
It's gorgeous.
It is so beautiful and dark and airy and sinister all in the same breath, and it is everything that Neil Gaiman's imagination is. I am so grateful he had a hand in touching every facet of that. I'm so grateful that he had a hand in picking the cast that is one of the most phenomenal casts for those characters. It was just so exquisite from top to bottom. The only episode that I didn't care for is the diner episode. I believe that
Yeah.
was episode 5.
And that's the one where I
One-
really sort of took a freeze and like really didn't watch it for like about a week or two.
I
That was
actually
a weird-
almost
that was
didn't
I
finish
think-
that
I
one.
think that's the episode that really made me like say to myself, okay, this is some heavy duty shit that I'm dealing with. So I really have to take my time with this show.
Yeah, and I'm not I don't want to say a fan. I just haven't read through all the graphic novels. I've started the series, so I don't know if a lot of that was relevant or not. But as a connoisseur of the type of absorber that I became of the series, I just felt like a lot of those elements in that particular episode were unnecessary, because they didn't necessarily drive the storyline along. If anything, like you said, Steve, it perfectly stopped me, and it made me question, why am I here? What am I doing? I felt like I was locked in purgatory or something, you know, like
That's what
somebody
that
had me the
episode really
fucking
does
key.
feel like. Yeah, it really does.
Oh God, it was forever, and I hated it. But beyond that, then it gets really good again, and then you really start to get back. I just felt like all the other episodes moved so beautifully, and the timing was perfect. Episode 5 is just so stagnant and dark and depressing, you know, and it's just so I don't, it's
Also,
devilish.
there's a couple of highlights of the show that I absolutely love. First of all, I love the Corinthian, the actor that played the Corinthian, and also the effects to make him look like he really came out of the comics, because that is tricky. That is a very tricky thing. But I also think that my favorite thing about the show is Morpheus's family dynamic. I love his rivalry with his
Gorgeous.
siblings.
Yes, I think that really helped to drive the plot along. I think that you were always kind of curious as to what corner he was going to take next, who he was going to run into, how that connected to the story, how they were going to help him along and getting back to where he belonged. Can we first stop and talk about the Gates of Hell, though? Oh my God,
Okay.
that gave me literal chills.
That
Literal
was-
chills.
You know, we've seen hell in so many shapes and forms, and that was Neil Gaiman entirely. And also, Gwendolyn Christie as Satan. What a choice! I love
Oh, she
Gwendolyn
was
Christie.
so delightful.
I
I know
love
that's
Gwendolyn
a horrible thing
Christie.
to say about Satan, but she was so delightful. I loved every inch of her. I just thought she was perfect for that part. I love the banter that she had back and forth with Morpheus. I thought that was the, again, perfect timing dynamic there with all of the different integration of the characters that he came across with, you know, in the depths of hell. I loved how it really did feel like we kind of stepped into Dante's Inferno for a second, you know, like you felt like that could potentially be the first gate, because it wasn't too dark, but it was dark enough to make you feel like, shit, I just stepped into hell. Like, how do we get out of here, you know? And that was another beautiful thing about the series, is that you truly felt a part of the story, no matter where they took you, no matter what you visited, no matter what characters you interacted with. You didn't just feel like you were watching something, you felt like you were there. And I haven't felt that in a show in a really long time, and I think that's why I binged it at the rate that I did, because I just couldn't get enough. I was like, oh my God, get into my veins. I was addicted. There was no other way to say it.
And I think that I really like, and another thing that I really liked about the show was that they always, in certain ways, and not in every episode, but like there'd be a whole gap, and then they finally remind you of this, and they go a little bit more, and then they remind you about what happened in the very first episode, where Morpheus was basically held captive, and they still show you in different ways what was going on in the world, whether it was in the real world or whether it was in the dream world, what was actually happening on their end. And even in that final episode special, it's so interesting that the second story with Calliope, how it was sort of an interesting reminder of, you remember Morpheus was imprisoned too, but that animated piece with the cats. Wow.
Oh, that was delightful. That was so good too. I mean, yeah, I was so excited. I was like, 2 more episodes. What are you talking about? Yeah, a genius is such I don't even think it's such a fair word to put behind. I mean, Neil Gaiman is someone I fell in love with in 2020. That was the first time I really just kind of fell in. I finally gave way to the Graveyard Book, and I read that, and I fell in love with that story. That is forever going to be in the top 5 of my favorite novels. But it really just it hit me in such a way that I wanted more Gaiman. So then I fell into Stardust, and I fell into Fortunately the Milk, and I just couldn't stop, and I just kept going and going and going. And it was inevitable that I was going to get to this, with my comic journey, but to see it visually is something uniquely special, and the mind of Neil Gaiman is so unique. I was very grateful that I finally got my hands on the Neil Gaiman Reader, which also allotted me to go back and read some of his short stories and things like that I had missed. And it just made me fall in love with him all over again. He is just such a creative genius that I just don't think that there's anybody that compares to him. He's
there's nobody that writes like him, and that's why you still have to see the film Mirror Mask. I know that is something that you would absolutely adore. I know for a solid fact that you love the DC Showcase short Death just as much as I do. I mean, I don't know
if ingrained in me.
I have no idea if he had a helping hand in making that short, but now that you have been exposed to so much Neil Gaiman, that short is very Neil Gaiman. And I would
Oh,
also,
but that was my first exposure to Death and kind of to Gaiman in terms of the comic realm. So that's kind of what even piqued my interest into the Sandman, because I'm like, who's Death and what is this beauty? And I love that concept, and just he has such a unique way of touching so many different genres and so many different elements of light, but he can take something very dark and something very tragic and make it very beautiful. And you can still find a lesson in it. And I think that's why I love Death so much, is that inevitably nobody wants to meet Death. You know, you don't want a part of it, but when you meet her, she's so beautiful and so fantastic, and you can't let help take her hand and say, okay, I'll go with you.
And very kind.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, so kind.
And that's why, and so you need to hear about this, because I need to get you in on this quickly. So there was a comic book that just came out this past month. I'm pretty sure you can still get the floppies. Neil Gaiman did his own take on superheroes as well. There is this character that was originally not a Marvel comic character. He was an indie character. His name was Miracle Man. And so there was a run that started with Alan Moore, another very unique comic book writer, and then Neil Gaiman took it over with, I believe it was issue 23, and he was writing a story, and he only got 2 issues of that story done, and then the book got canceled. Then Marvel took over the character, and they're finally giving him and artist Lindsey Buckingham the opportunity to come back to this character and finally tell the story. So we got Miracle Man issue number 0, which was basically a prologue. And then just 2 weeks ago, we got Miracle Man, the Silver Age issue number 1, which is a reprinting and remastering of the original Neil Gaiman Miracle Man issue number 23. So we're going to get that. And then we're going to get issue number 24 remastered with Silver Age issue number 2. And then once we get the Miracle Man Silver Age number 3, it's the official continuation of the original Neil Gaiman story from the late 80s, early 90s. So I am personally excited to see Gaiman finally come back to this story that he never got to finish and retell it and finally give us closure. So I'm excited for this new Miracle Man run. A lot of people are very excited for it. And I loved these issue 0 prologue, and I loved issue number 1. It was great. So unique.
I will definitely be picking that up then.
Okay, so I think that's officially, except for the fact that I completely forgot to ask you, Cami, about Inside the Mind of a Cat.
It's just fun. It's one of those things, you know, if you haven't heard, I'm fostering 2 kittens right now. So I was initially fostering 4. There's a stray cat who, she had a litter of kittens a few months back, and they didn't make it, unfortunately. It was around the summertime. I think it was a combination of just bad conditions and the heat, and she didn't quite trust me just yet, and so I wasn't able to help her with those. And then she had this litter very close to me, so I was like, okay, this is my calling. I am not letting these kittens go, and I will take, you know, come hell or high water, they are going to be under my care. So I took her in, I got her fixed and everything finally, and then I took in her babies. I've rehomed 2 of them, and then I still have a brother and a sister. But it prompted me to see these cats, and I'm like, you know what, I need to get inside the mind of a cat, because cats are unique. I've had cats in and around me for 25 years. My very first rescue rescued me, and it was a cat, and she passed in 2017. But she taught me just the joy of being a pet owner, like a legitimate pet owner. And I had her for 15 years, and I absolutely loved her. Her name was Snitch. She was named after the golden snitch in Harry Potter because she was impossible to catch. But I never really knew, like, how do cats communicate with us? Like, I do see that they understand you when you talk to them. They're extremely intelligent beings. They're very sassy. But I wanted to know, like, do they do they understand you at the same level dogs understand you? So watch this if you care about any of that, because it will answer those questions and so much more. And it really made me feel good as a cat owner and caretaker that I have done a lot of things right over the years, and that what I have done in certain elements is appreciated by them, even though they're complete assholes, and they'll
Yeah.
never let you know that. They do care, and they have their own way of showing you that. So it's really cool. If you love cats, or
Well-
if you're just curious, it's fun. It's worth your while.
Well, I'm never going to be a pet owner, but I always say that dogs are pretty much like little toddlers and cats are like teenage girls, because if they want something, they'll come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is
So-
very true.
I think that's going to wrap it up, everybody. Another great episode in the books. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get one out in November, just because of the fact that I think we all have a lot going on, but we will definitely be back to close out 2022. And then it's going to be all holidays and Christmas and all that fun stuff. So I'm sure everybody is looking forward to that. So I think we all were left with a little bit of homework to do in some shape or form. So I'm really hoping that we will all come back and we will discuss some of the things that we discussed today and follow up. But Cami, you and I still have a lot of work to do. We have a DC animated live show to work on. We have the Department of Truth discussion that we need to work on. Gina, you're going to be coming over to That's Comical for a Saga discussion, and I'm really hoping that you will continue to join us for the Saga discussion until the series officially comes to a close. That's
Yes.
one thing that I'm very excited for. And not the closing of Saga, but just the continuation
Right.
of the story. And Cami, there's still so many other things that you and I need to do. I mean, I know that you are really, and Andy and I are really excited. We're really excited to discuss the comparison of the book and the film of Superman Red Son. This has been something that we have been waiting to finally do. I'm excited for
That's
that.
what
So
started it all for me right there. Red Sun. That's what
Yeah.
sucked me in wholeheartedly.
did
So
you
I'm
pick up your copy of Batman Superman Battle of the Super Sons?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I personally loved it. I loved it, but we'll get into that another time. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to leave a comment and a thumbs up. Let us know what you had to say about the show. Please, let's have a discussion. And if you liked everything that you heard here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're up to date with all of our latest content. Thank you, everybody. I need to edit this video and go to sleep, and we will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, feel free to leave a comment. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to be up to date with our latest videos. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next one. Actions speak louder than words.